want to wish everybody a happy and successful Veterans Day and say thank you to all of the men and women who have served in our armed forces. This game is Veterans Appreciation Game, and Nate Boyer will receive an honor before the game, and we have a couple of special honorary captains we'll talk about later in the week. But it's always special for us, and we couldn't be playing the great game of football and have the education system that we have without our military keeping our country safe and free, and we appreciate it very, very much. Saturday night's game was so much fun. It was a game that I think as good a game the second half as I've ever been involved with. Just back and forth, and kids and coaches competing to try to make a play. And about the time somebody take the lead, somebody come right back and get it back, and everybody sure got their money's worth. But it shows you the resiliency that this team has developed, the bond that they have for each other, the confidence, the way they're playing so hard all the time. We were ready to play. We played hard. We didn't play good all the time, but we made the plays that we needed to win the game. It looked like the offense was poor the first half, and the defense really played an outstanding first half. And then defense kind of left for a while, and offense woke up, and kicking game was in and out throughout the night. But give Dana Holgerson credit, give West Virginia credit. The atmosphere was good. The people, their fans, really supported their team, and they all treated us with tremendous respect. So it was fun. But the dressing room was special. You saw the way those players took the field after the win. I don't think I've ever seen them more excited than that. And in the dressing room, as sad as it was to lose Jonathan Gray, who was leading throughout the game, running up and down the sideline on his crutches, and Chris Whaley, who was distraught leaving the field because he knew how badly he was hurt. He's smart, but him coming right back out there, and then those two stood up and addressed the team at the end of the game and talked about how proud they were, and we're moving forward and we're not letting up is really a special moment. So as much as we will lose Chris Whaley's ability on the field and Jonathan Gray, because both will be NFL prospects when they get through with their college careers, we're going to miss some of their on-the-field leadership even more, because they're two of the most passionate leaders that we've got on this football team. So we're breaking our rules this weekend as such, and we're taking the injured players with us on the trip. We just haven't done that before in my past, but we're doing it because we need those guys. We need them on the sideline. We need them in the meetings. We need them with their coaches. So they'll continue to go with us this weekend. It also sends a message, next man up. Joe Bergeron stepped in and scored a touchdown and did a very good job at tailback, and Desmond Jackson was the player, one of the players of the game on defense. So we've lost a lot of players this year. I think there's 5 or 6 starters right now that aren't in there. But what you got to do is modern day football, part of being a good football team is being able to have enough depth and have enough about you to step up and the next man move forward. I said Saturday night was about plays, and just a few of them that we talked about as a staff yesterday that ended up winning the game. Even like Kansas last year, case to Jackson on 4th down and 7. We don't David to the DJ Grant last year at Oklahoma State on 4th and 6. Those are plays that we've made throughout to win, and that was a huge play. The play action pass on the goal line, because what's really an interesting call, it's not that one, because that was an outstanding call to Della Torre on the goal line. It's the same pass we threw to beat Kansas last year. It was just to the left, and we hit the tight end instead of the fullback in the flat. But the real interesting thing, what happens if you're 4th down and 2 now? Do you kick the field goal or do you go for it? So I'm glad we didn't have to make that call. We were discussing it as they were breaking the huddle. And then the one that's kind of hidden in there, Greg Daniels jumping on the fumble when Malcolm fumbled the ball. That could have been at least the ball game probably, because they go back on offense and kick a long field goal and win the game. Then you go back to the tackle with 2 or 3 minutes left from Carrington Bynum on 3rd down. Tackle for a loss. That's a huge play that you don't talk a lot about. The tackle by Adrian Phillips on the reverse in the overtime. If he doesn't tackle him, we're back out there already. And in fact, on the reverse, I told the offense, all right, get ready. Get your play sheets out. We're going back, most likely. And then the plays by Steve Edmond on the goal line. The goal line stand unbelievable 4 plays inside the 5. And Steve Edmond batting the ball down on the 3rd down and then intercepting on the 4th down. But you don't see Quandre Diggs putting pressure on the quarterback where he had to get it out of his hands too fast and pulling off and not hitting the quarterback, because you could end up with a personal foul that extends the game and gives them a 1st down at that time. So Michael Thompson nearly blocked a punt earlier in the game. We hadn't gone after punts. They came after the one at the end of the game. It was a 30-yard punt that gave us field position to get down for the field goal. All of those things are significant plays that made so much difference to this football team time and time again. Oklahoma State this weekend should be fun. Top 10, top 12 team in the 2 polls. You go back and study what Mike Gundy's done. He's been 8-1 at this time of the year 4 of the last 6 years. In the 102 years leading into him getting the job in 2005, only 4 times in their history were they 8-1. So he's done an amazing job. When you start studying them last night and today and kind of watching them, they're much better on defense than they've been. They have held the last 3 teams they've played to 0 and 29 in 3rd down and 7 or longer situations. So they're just shutting people out in 3rd downs, and they're doing a great job. They forced 23 turnovers, intercepted about 16 passes. So those guys are playing at a high level. Their offense is really good. It's very balanced, but they get so much more credit for their offense than they do their defense. Their defense has really stepped up, and they're in the top 15 in kickoff returns and punt returns. So their kicking game is also a very, very good one, and we'll have our hands full this weekend, but we'll expect one of the best crowds we've ever had. It should be fun. Our guys know we've got 3 games left to win the conference championship, and they understand that this one is the only one they can do anything about. They're proud of themselves. They understand that the injuries hurt us, but they're not allowing that to be an excuse. And we got back at I went to bed at 6 on Sunday morning. Those guys are younger than I am, so thank goodness they're excited and ready to go. And a lot of guys banged up too, but we're going to go back to work and get ready for a great game this weekend. Questions?
You know injuries are going to happen, Mac, but I mean, you can start going down the line and that guy's hurt too. You almost forget. You guys feel like you're just fighters in there taking haymaker after haymaker?
Well, we do, and we've told the guys it is what it is. This is a tough sport, so whoever knows about injuries. And here's Jonathan, one of our best players, and Jordan Hicks, one of our best players, that tear Achilles and don't get touched. It was so similar. It's just I don't even remember having an Achilles heel that was tendon that was torn before with a player that I've coached. So I think what we've done is challenge the other players on the team to make sure somebody got to help us with special teams, because now Joe Bergeron has to come off some of those special teams, and he's been a great special teams player for us. So somebody else got to step up. So it's an opportunity for guys who haven't played a lot here in 3 weeks to step back in and play. And I do also think it's even more reason for the NCAA to look at changing that rule where you could play in 5 games. Because we've got so many freshmen right now that could come out and play in the last 3 games, and you don't want to take their redshirt year away, and at the same time you need them, and you need them out there. So I really think that I hope that's something that the American Football Coaches Association will get the NCAA to continue to look at.
This is something you talked about over the last few years, is the depth and how it wasn't there. And does this kind of speak to exactly what you've been working toward for the last few years?
It is. We've had the similar injuries for the last 3 years, but like going to Missouri, we had no running backs. We were down to 1. And Jeremy Hills played the whole game and was on every special team because the other 3 were out. But it does speak to how hard the coaches have worked for 3 years to prepare to have a team with some depth. And you've got some Hassan Ridgeways now that have to step up. Desmond Jackson did, but we need some depth there, so he's going to have to step up now. And he's played well at times, but it's time to go. I mean, you can't wait anymore. You got to be like a starter when you go in the game. You've got DeJay, who can be the third-team tailback and has some, but now Jalen Overstreet's going to have to take some of the slack up for Joe Bergeron on the special teams, but Jalen's also going to have to get ready to play at tailback again. And we've been through it at receiver. I mean, it's just been a year. Kennedy Estelle couldn't play in the second half Saturday night. So we moved Trey Hopkins to tackle and Cedric Flowers to guard, and just kept playing, and the guys did a good job. So the staff and the players aren't making excuses. They're just moving on. Yes?
With many injuries coming from targeting calls in other games around the country, is there anything Texas works on specifically to avoid getting targeting calls like panic and tackling?
Yes, it really affects your secondary more than anybody else, because those are usually the plays in space that happen the most. And Coach Akina is trying to teach them to tackle more around the waist, and the shots that you're taking are in the chest now, and sure, not up high. So it's something that we're very conscious of, and for safety and for the fact that now, since they are ejected, you just can't afford to have a player ejected.
Mack Brown, Jonathan Gray, you talked about being a downhill power running team, and Oklahoma State obviously has a very good run defense. How do you approach this week differently, or do you still stick with the same attack down?
We kind of have to wait and see how they're going to play us, Bob. We thought West Virginia had played their safeties so deep, and people had run the ball some, but it was still hard yards in there. And we thought they would come bring the safeties down and play us in the box and make us throw the ball to beat them, and they did, and we didn't throw it very well the first half. So we expect that out of the next three opponents. We think people are going to say it's going to be hard running, but we still ran for 167 yards. So I was really proud of Major and the offensive staff that they didn't give up on the run. Even the last long run by Malcolm Brown in overtime was one that got us down there, and it was a second long run. So I was really proud that they were patient, and even though it didn't look good at times, the biggest thing we've got to do is do a better job than we did Saturday night in the red zone, because when we did run it, we didn't make yards, and when we threw it, we didn't complete passes and had to kick field goals, or that game's out of reach early. And the defense played well enough to put us in a position to do a lot better than we did. So it wasn't awful, because we still kicked field goals and we scored some points, and they weren't moving it much. But at the same time, you can't do that in these next 3 weeks and win.
You mentioned Joe Bergeron stepping up after Gray went down. Such a big game for him, especially after the troubles that he had with the fumbles, not getting to see a whole lot of action. What are you seeing from him, and what type of player is he to be able to come in and have that success?
The message to all of us, and especially young players out there, is Joe gets taken out of the running back mix, partly because the other two were doing really well, and probably more importantly because he fumbled a couple of times in key situations for us. So what he did is instead of pouting and threatening to transfer and quit, which a lot of young men would do, he said, I want to be on every special team, and he ended up being the special teams player of the week a couple of times, and he's made great plays. And he got the coach's attention by going back and doing the things that he needed to do to get back in the running back spot. Jonathan goes down, there's no question, you put him in, and then he goes in and not only plays well, he's fresh, but scores a touchdown for us. So he could have pouted when we said, Joe, we need you, come on in. He could have said, yeah, you hadn't needed me for the last 3 weeks, which some kids would have done. And he's matured a whole lot, and I'm really proud of him. And really sad for Jonathan and Chris. It's just a very difficult thing for them. But they'll stay involved, and they're really bright, and they're two of the nicest young people I've ever seen, and they'll be out there encouraging Joe and Malcolm.
Mack, you said you were going to take them on the trip, but you guys are going to be at home the next week. So are you going to take them to Baylor, or?
No, we go to the hotel. It's what we do. It's a travel. When you're at home, you travel, and we haven't taken them to the hotel. If they're injured, we will take them with us, and they'll be on the sidelines in their jerseys, because I want them to stay part of this.
You mentioned the fumble at the goal line. It seemed like a bit of a forgotten play that just kind of happened and everybody moved on. What was going through your mind when you see the ball squirting out right there?
I didn't forget it. You might have forgotten it. I was just happy that Greg Daniels was there. In fact, I thought he was going to pick it up and try to score with it, and I was a little nervous about him fumbling it again, but he dove on it, and he did exactly what he should have done. And, of course, we've talked to Malcolm about you can't have it happen. You just can't do that in that situation. So you can learn from that and put yourself in a position where it doesn't happen again. You still win the game, and that makes it special. These guys are just amazing at how confident they are in these settings. And I thought we'd win the game without overtime. I really did, and I was disappointed when we didn't, because that's what we've done. That's who we are, and that's why we've never been in overtime.
Mack, you mentioned all those plays, the 4th and 6s at Kansas and Oklahoma State last year. The 4th and 7 in West Virginia, you were laughing on the sideline, almost like, hey, been here, we know What's going through your mind? Because it just seemed like, hey, we got this, no big deal.
You know, every player and every coach on that team is looking at me to see how I respond. Every one of them. And if I'm tight, they're tight. If I show confidence in them, and why wouldn't I? Because they've always made those plays. Then I told them, this is who we are. How much fun is this? We're exactly where we like to be. But we're going to make it. And then after Case and Jackson did it, I pointed to Case and said, you did it again. Now we're going to score and win the game. And he said, you're right. So, but it's important. If I'm screaming and shouting and threatening them, and then they think that there's some doubt in my mind whether they're ready for this. And I always said, hey, this is us. Do your job. Be proud. This is fun. This is what you come here for. This is what you want. We said there'd be adversity on the road. You got it. You're overloaded with it. So handle it and let's win and get home.
And what did you make of your first overtime experience? I mean,
I'd rather never do it again unless we're behind and have to. It's not one of those things that you look forward to during a game, I don't think. So it's just that we've always practiced it. I've always watched it. I've always worried from being an older coach, I've always worried about the defenses getting tired, because if you go into triple overtime, the scores can be 75-72, and it's not healthy. I've always worried that the plane's going to be so late you may not be able to get home, because what time can they let them fly if some of those games have been forever. It really skews the stats, because some guys might complete 8 more passes in overtime, and that's tough for those way back that didn't have that opportunity. But what you don't realize until you're standing there, a missed field goal, a fumble, a penalty, all of a sudden you're at the mercy of the other team if you don't score when you get it first. And I wanted to win the toss and play defense. We didn't get to do that. So everything we'd planned on and looked at didn't happen. But we have a plan for overtime, and Major and the coaches knew exactly what they wanted to do. And I was so proud of the defense. They didn't panic. And when you're first and goal at the 4, you're going to run it in, you're going to pass it in. What are you going to do with 4 shots? And like I said, if we had missed the pass on the 3rd down and 2, what do you do on 4th and 2? Then do you kick it or do you go for it and go home early? I mean, so it's I made the decision that I wanted us to score. And we did, thank goodness. I don't know what we'd done. We were talking about it when they were breaking the huddle, and we would have used our timeout, because you have one timeout in overtime, and then we would have discussed it.
Mack, I know it's not important in the moment, but a kid like Alex, he may never touch the football again in his career, but as a coach, to see him have that moment, what's it like for you?
It's really special. It's funny now with Twitter. I get on the bus, we're headed to the airport about 1 or 2 in the morning, and somebody's already put his play on Twitter for his mother to see. So things have changed a little bit from times in the past. But he had the fake punt against Kansas State for 16 yards, and he's a guy that he's a linebacker, fullback in high school that's athletic, and he's been such a great blocker for us. We did a little special on him on the TV show last week. So I think this was good to reward him with a catch, and we were all kind of happy when he got it. In fact, he went to the media afterwards, and you never think about this. He said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, they'll tell you what to do when you get in there." And he said, "Well, do I ask them? What do I?" And I said, "Just go out there and sit, and they'll ask you questions." And he'd never been to a press conference before in college, so I'd never thought about that. Yes.
Coach, I'm Craig Slater from Sky Television London here. Obviously, have the Grand Prix this weekend. They talk to have it on a different weekend from a Longhorns game, but it makes it a huge weekend of sport here in this city. Are you conscious of that? And does having international fans and the international media here add a little extra dimension to your game?
Yes, it does. It's just Austin is one of the top cities in the world, and we have friends involved with Formula One and bringing the race here. And I've been involved with those friends, and it's too bad it's on the same weekend. But then again, we're going to have a hopping city on Saturday night. There's no question about that. So I think it'll be fun, and for everybody coming in to have the special treat of one of the top ball games in the country this weekend, and the race. It'll be a great Saturday night, and Sunday.
So if you win, do you let the players get along on Sunday?
Well, what we do, we always say when we win. that what we do is they're off till about 2 o'clock on Sunday. So they'll have an opportunity, but then they got to come back and get ready for next week's practice.
What's the fastest you've ever driven in a car, Coach?
I'm not going there, Anthony. Not as fast as these guys are going.
That's a Bob's statement about looking at pace and watching him do it again. I guess it's so mind-boggling how he's able to pull this up. Can you explain his success at the end of games like this?
Well, his brother was the same, so it has to go back to the family and coaching and confidence. And I would think a lot of he watched his brother do it, and they love that. They just want the ball in their hand at the end, and that's what you always say about your guy. You want your quarterback to want to be in that situation. You want your point guard to take the last shot. You want the golfer to be on 18 with a chance to win. And he loves that. He loves the excitement and the drama of down to the end. And he's really good in that setting. He's very confident. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Mack, the second part of that is Jackson making the catch. He's kind of been quiet for a while this year. He kind of had a big game set. Can you talk about the way he kind of just sticks with it?
Yes, he had an outstanding game at Oklahoma, and people have started double covering him, especially on third downs, and he still comes up and makes plays. They were all over him on that one. He jumped up and made a really good catch. But that's why you're proud of Kendall Sanders and Marcus Johnson, because Mike's been double covered more and Jackson's been double covered more, and it's hard for him to double cover DeJay because we move him so much. But it's left those other guys in one-on-one situations. And another key play that people forgot, the pass to Marcus Johnson that got us down to have a chance to take it in.
Can you talk about Chelf and the dimension he adds? He's throwing the ball well, but obviously the running dimension he brings too.
Yes, he's an older guy, been around now and played a lot of football. What J.W. brought to them was the option, and you go back and study the Texas Tech game, Chef just took off and on a quarterback draw, scramble, and he ran 60 yards straight ahead and looked really fast. And he can run the option. So they're running the ball really well. They're always good in the offensive line. They're one of the best offensive lines in our conference every year. But his ability to throw the ball really makes them tough. This will be probably the most balanced team we've played all year on offense.
Mack, we've talked this year about the streakiness of the OU series and the bad luck you've had against Kansas State until this year. OSU games, so crazy each and every year it seems like.
They have been. I've always thought it's a lot because so many Texans on their team. I didn't check today, but we can check. It's usually in the 40s or 50s out of their 85 on scholarship, and all those guys are coming back to their home state, and they want to show mama that they can play here. So I do think that's why these games have been so special. It's nearly like an in-state game when you look at their roster.
Texas is back in the top 25 for the first time in several weeks. What was your reaction to finding out that the national spotlight is back in Austin?
I thought it would be. I was glad that we were in the BCS top 25, but with the 3 games we've got left, that'll take care of itself. That's why I wasn't worried about it. This 3-game stretch is going to be exciting and fun.